I'm Jessica Ann Bogart for Audio Story Time. Today's story is an odd mix of fan fiction and faux fiction, which is the opposite of fan fiction. The subject of this tug-of-war is Star Wars.
Welcome to
Audio
Story.
Hello, I'm Rabadash, the primary but not the only narrator for this section. Comments will be made by me and others throughout.
We left off at Emperor Sheev Alderaan's shock at learning he was expected to cast some kind of judgment on a child, as Anakin Vader demanded. Little Felicity being helped so far by a very reluctant ocean elf, who disdains this kind of proceeding.
Part 9. Judgment. Ooh, the infamous judgment.
Sheev shook his head. "Child," he said warmly, approaching Felicity, "I apologize, but I'll try to make this as easy as possible."
"You shouldn't go through with it at all," said the elf dourly.
"Thank you, Miss Elf. I will take over from here. Felicity, I will guide you. Here's my hand." The Emperor took one of her hands in his warm ones and slowly began moving with her toward the throne.
"You know this is not right," said the elf. "Meeting you is fine, but this judgment stuff has got to go."
"Not to worry, Miss Elf. I will make sure no harm comes to her. She will be just fine."
The elf looked unconvinced and followed Sheev. "Have you ever guided a blind person before?"
Sheev shook his head.
"I have," the elf continued patiently. "Let her take your arm and lead her. If you want her to walk directly behind you, just tuck your elbow in behind your back, and when you go up and down steps, pause just before you go up or down, and that'll indicate there are steps or some significant change in what and where you're about to lead her."
"Thank you, elf," said Sheev with a grateful smile.
"And if you'd like her to take a seat, stop by the chair and gently take one of her hands and put it on an armrest or back of it. She'll orient her way to sit down from there." That hallway was so chock-a-block full of junk that I couldn't even guide her properly. We had to go train style, with her hanging on to both my arms so she wouldn't trip on something. The Emperor looked regretfully at the girls. "My sincere apologies, but I'll help you the best I can, Felicity dear, and don't worry, Elf, she'll be fine. Thanks for your help. I'll take it from here." The elf reluctantly retraced her steps back out the throne room, down the halls and down the steps.
So that was Ocean's bit, I guess. Before I go on, I need to get something from my stomach.
Take a break from narrating and relax. Adam and Bella will read the Star Wars nut stuff, and Iris Munn will read Oceans.
Go for it, Iris. My pleasure, Lisa. As the Emperor led Felicity toward the throne, the girl pondered what would come next.
Gently lifting her onto the throne before sitting down himself, Sheev leaned his walking stick against the throne. "Now," he said, "I shall now see if your nature is pure enough, if you are worthy to meet Skywalker."
He then whispered in her ear, "Try not to worry. This is just a formality." At this, he suddenly winced, as if he received a sudden jolt of pain. Nevertheless, he continued.
Leaning on his walking stick, Sheev sat down beside Felicity. Helping her to turn so that she was looking directly at him, he spoke. "If I should reach out to you as instructed, let me." Sitting in silence for a moment, Sheev gazed into her eyes.
It didn't harm her. She only felt uneasy because of the silence and the feeling she was being sized up.
"Your nature is indeed kind and pure. You are worthy to meet Skywalker for sure," he finally said.
He whispered in her ear once more. "I don't see why it wouldn't be. Apologies for putting you through this, but we can't risk upsetting Anakin." Sheev once again grimaced in pain, but it passed quickly and he shrugged it off.
Standing up and taking her hand in his, he led her down a passage, then another, then several more, then to a downward flight of stairs, then through more halls. A door opened. In front of her was another space. Within that space was Anakin Skywalker. "Where is Anakin?" Felicity asked. "He's right in front of you," the Emperor replied. "He spends most of his time in meditation. If he wishes, he might tell you his story. Alas, I must leave you now. I have other rounds to which I must attend. All the best, my dear," the Emperor said, walking away, the sound of his walking stick echoing.
Notice how Anakin didn't even have the decency to greet either of them yet.
Yeah, what a self-absorbed, entitled fart face. Well, I get the next tidbit, so here we go. Anakin Vader smiled. Sheev stuck to the line that referenced his story. That would hopefully set Felicity up to become curious and ask. It looks like there's quite a large ocean section. Should I continue, or do you want to narrate again?
Thanks for the break, Iris. I'll resume narrating for a while.
In the meantime, Ocean Elf began training again without risk of being hurt. She had no intention of ever wielding a lightsaber in battle. This was just learning about the different maneuvers as a way to pass some time, but her heart wasn't in it.
Very good, keep it up, Ben encouraged her. Thank you, she replied coolly, and moved away from him to the other side of the training area. Ben followed discreetly and watched her. The lightsaber flew out of her hand and clattered on the floor.
"Oh, crap!" she exclaimed. Ben grinned. "Elf, why don't you take the day off, or at least take a break?" he suggested.
Without a word, the elf picked up her lightsaber and sullenly stalked over to stow it in its place.
"Ocean," Ben approached her.
She moved away.
"Please, don't shut me out," he said.
I see no reason to let you in, she retorted bitterly. Any of you!
Even Yoda? Ben asked sadly. He cares about you, Ocean Elf, and so do I.
Not enough to stop doting on that. I will not mention his name if I can help it, she said.
You've disliked him right from the start, Ben observed.
The elf nodded, then turned away again. I'm out.
"Ocean!" Ben reached out and put a hand on her shoulder and felt her stiffen beneath it. "Even if we factor out all the horrible things he's done, the guy's an angsty, whiny, bossy, manipulative prima donna."
She finally said it. Ben couldn't help but chuckle at this. He knew what the elf meant by that expression, but the mental image of Darth Vader Anakin on stage in an opera was too much.
The elf seemed oblivious to his amused reaction and continued. This whole judgment thing is totally screwy. I mean, who else other than that man gets away with this crap?
But Ocean, he told Sheev that it's to prevent threats to our galaxy.
"Threats? From a little girl whom you rescued the other night, and you all believe his blithering codswallop? No, this is another desperate and stupid Anakin scheme."
Elf! Don't you elf me! How would it be if I just decided one day that a little girl should have the Emperor judge her and determine if she's worthy to meet me? Think of that. What would you do if I decided I was such a prize that people actually had to be deemed to have a good enough nature to meet me? Stuck up or what? Did you even notice what you were all doing? As Anakin desires, you said. Last I heard, Anakin is not the Emperor, and here he has him performing weird judgments on little girls for him.
Ben sighed dejectedly. Elf.
And I'll tell you something else. Your new Emperor was shocked when Felicity was introduced. He had no idea he was expected to pass judgment on a frightened little girl, and he sure didn't look happy about being put into that situation.
Elf, Ben sighed, looking downcast. I am at a loss for explanations. I don't dare anger Anakin, and neither does Emperor Sheev.
Pardon me for the interruption, but I'd like to mention that this caused a discussion in which Anakin's fangirl admitted that her characters feared as well as adored him.
All except Ocean were puppets on a string for Anakin. How messed up. Rapidash?
The elf hissed and scowled. All the more reason to stop caring if he gets angry or not and stand up to this bully.
Ben continued.
For what it's worth, I have already tried several times to warn him not to get any notions about you and him. I appreciate you doing that much, but you shouldn't be afraid of him.
It's not only his temper, it's that he's been through so much and wants to make amends.
The elf threw her hands in the air.
Oh, please, she said in disgust.
He's put people through tons of stuff, and he can't make amends for that.
With his family, I mean, said Ben. The elf remained unmoved. Right, never mind all the families he destroyed. I guess they don't count.
Ben looked away, realizing there was nothing he could say to justify anything Anakin did.
The elf continued.
Forget the obligations, brave up, and tell him to grow the heck up then!
If I was sure I could get Luke on board with that idea, Ben put a finger to his lips.
Ocean rolled her eyes. Since when do you need his approval?
Elf, I didn't want to scold you, you know. I wasn't trying to upset you or make you think I didn't care about your feelings. I just didn't want a scene to start and risk Felicity panicking.
The elf nodded, expression becoming calmer. Sorry about my outburst, too. Panicking her is the last thing I would do on purpose.
But I've had more than I can stand of Anakin. I don't ever want to see him again or be part of anything he wants done. So I'll be leaving today, and I won't come back until he either moves out or dies. I don't want to leave Felicity here with him, but she chose him, and I can't do anything about that.
I hope you can keep her safe.
This was true. As of yet, Ocean didn't even know if Felicity was from Earth or from some planet in the Star Wars galaxy. Ben looked sad. All the best to you, Ocean Elf. Yoda and I will miss you, but may we still contact you and keep in touch?
Yes, she said quietly, eyes brimming with tears, and turned to walk out. Ocean! Ben called after her. She turned back and looked at him.
Ben walked over to her, then said quietly, I couldn't let on earlier, but I feel very uneasy about this. Procedure Anakin is putting the little girl through. He doesn't want to be checked on, but I'm going to. Would you like to join me and see that Felicity is all right?
For the child's sake, the elf agreed. Yes, I didn't want to leave her back there at all.
Now, we finally come to the infamous judgment scene between Anakin, Vader, and Felicity. Iris, it's your turn.
And me too. Iris does one Anakin line because it's one that Ocean added. But since Bella did the Star Wars girls' writing during the preliminary judgment on Felicity by Sheev, I'm reading the Star Wars Fanatics' big feature, The Judgment of Felicity by Anakin Vader. Iris reads everything Ocean has added.
Okay, sit back, everyone. This is going to be cringy.
Approaching Felicity and taking her hand, Anakin brought her into his meditation chamber, shutting the door behind him. Sit down, he said. Felicity did as she was told. Now how you came here is a mystery even to me,
He claimed. But you said you would take me out of there, Felicity said. It made no sense that she was promised help in escaping a bad home situation, only for the one helping her to not remember doing it. Ocean said I should insert the part about the bad home situation being only in her mind. Anakin put it there. And this way we can wrap her story up and send her back home where she belongs. Far, far away from Anakin and the Star Wars galaxy.
Good, Felicity. You passed the first test. Your brain is sharp, he said. But his tone was slightly patronizing.
Wow, good mock out of Anakin Vader, Iris.
Thanks, Mika. I couldn't resist. I'll continue to read what Ocean added in. Felicity was getting the feeling he was amusing himself at her expense.
He continued. I'm aware that you are completely blind in both eyes.
Felicity winced. Now he wanted to focus on her blindness. She felt like she was just put into a room alone with an overgrown third-grade bully. She clammed up for a moment, then had an idea. He had hinted before that he had a story of his own, and she would rather find that out than be dissected mentally by this now frightening being who had originally comforted, then frightened and fascinated her back at her previous home.
Do you mind if I...
She was cut off. Suspecting what Felicity was about to ask, Anakin knew this was his big chance to impress her with his authoritativeness. He became stern.
Take care what you ask, and to whom, if you are going to ask about my injuries, do not. I will tell you my tale if I wish, as the Emperor has said. For now, I must learn your whole story, and all of the memories and feelings from it. Now, he said, you're going to let my stare penetrate your chest.
Oh, creepers.
This is just all sorts of wrong.
Yes, Alpha. You and Mika are not the only ones to be horrified by this. Yuck.
I'm registering horrified expressions unanimously. That's good. Felicity shuddered. She wished Ben, Yoda, or Elf would come bursting in to stop this violation. And how had he known what the Emperor had said in the throne room when he wasn't even there? Anakin continued.
I can see your heart, your thoughts, your nature.
Felicity was now creeped out beyond belief. First, he wanted to stare at her chest. Now he said he could read her thoughts. Felicity was getting the feeling she would be possessed by the time this was over. Possessed by Anakin, who, if he wasn't bluffing, would own her thoughts, her memories, her feelings, and personality, all saved into his mind for later recall, for any purpose he might wish. There would be no more Felicity. She would be owned by Anakin, whether she wanted to be or not. What did he have in mind for her nature, and why was it necessary to have her nature checked by two people?
Ugh! To think someone exists out there who could actually think this was somehow a good idea. And for what purpose? To show off Anakin's supposed supermind powers? His clout within the Star Wars setting? To try proving something to everyone else about how awesome he and his fangirl wanted people to believe he was? Ocean really highlighted the creep factor with what she inserted. Even with that, the Star Wars fanatic still didn't fall out of love with Anakin. And we know Anakin does manipulate some characters' minds. That's how he convinced Leia she was burning to death when there were no physical signs on her. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Sit very still, he ordered. Falling silent, Anakin looked directly into Felicity's eyes. Noticing the whiteness, he stared deeper.
Frightened.
She felt his force penetrate further into her mind. That's intense. Silence, he stated. I cannot see your nature properly if there is brain activity occurring. Let me look deeper. He reached out and grasped her hand and held on, giving it a squeeze.
It made her feel very uneasy. She tried to pull away, but Anakin wouldn't allow it. This was the exact feeling she remembered having a few years before, when Anakin had brought around to her place a silent friend who supposedly knew everything about everyone, including her. That silent being was none other than Slender Man, and this is where the judgment ends. Rabadash?
This section comes from Ocean. There was a knock at the chamber door, and Ben stepped in. Anakin, that is enough, he said firmly. But Ben was accompanied by Elf, who was not so calm about what she saw. Ben registered the heart and mind penetration attempt by Vader. Elf did not. She saw something quite different that had nothing to do with Force activity. When Anakin and Felicity were facing each other, he looked in her eyes, then at her chest, all to do with knowing her mind and her heart. Or so he said. The elf rushed forward and went for Anakin's eyes. He put his hands up to protect them. "You let!" the elf shouted. "All right, break it up now!" Ben shouted as he tried to come between the two of them. He managed to pull Elf away, but that didn't stop her from kicking at Vader. "Now, Elf, that's enough!" Ben carefully restrained her using the Force.
"Judging an innocent young girl as worthy to meet him indeed," the elf ranted. "He makes me sick!"
"I know, and I agree," said Ben, trying to calm her down.
"How could you say that, Ben? I did this for Elf's benefit!"
Anakin Vader defended himself.
"What kind of stupid is that?"
Came an angry outburst from the elf. She couldn't have looked more offended.
Felicity couldn't help the giggle that escaped her.
Even Ben couldn't keep a straight face, and he turned away from Vader and toward Elf to let out a quiet chuckle at her bluntness. When he got himself under control, he turned back to Vader. "Anakin, how in the world is this for Elf's benefit? I thought this was supposed to be for Felicity's. Elf hated this idea as soon as she heard about it." "Oh, forget it! Forget it! It's all gone south anyway!" Anakin raged.
"Wah!" the elf mocked him. "Poor baby! Do you get that much pleasure from my distress?"
Anakin Vader rounded on her.
"Cram it! You are not the victim!"
The elf snarled back.
Ben turned to Elf and spoke much more quietly. "I know you're upset, but you've got to calm down." "Calm down!" she said incredulously. "Know what he was doing? Staring at her chest!" she shouted.
"Shh!" Anakin Vader said, turning red. Ben turned to Vader. "No more Anakin," he said firmly. "It's over."
"But Ben—" "No buts. Felicity is a stranger in a strange place. She is still overwhelmed and needs more rest and healing." Ben let Elf go and approached and gently offered Felicity his arm. "Come with me, dear, and I will get you something to eat and a place to rest. Elf, you too." Felicity timidly got up and began to make her way with Ben out of Anakin's chamber.
"Now look what you've done! You interrupted a judgment proceeding!" Anakin Vader roared. "Shove it!" the elf shouted back. "Keep quiet, both of you!"
Ben said sternly. Turning to look back at Vader, he continued,
"That judgment was very cruel. I do not know what ailed me to allow it now. It was a procedure started by Sheev Palpatine and will be discontinued now!"
"Wait, what?" the elf piped up. "But I thought you said in the training area that this was unlike the previous Emperor." Ben stood, stumped for a moment, and looked at her. "When did I say that? Don't you remember? Back in the training area before we took Felicity up here. You scolded me for my outburst then." Ben shook his head to clear it. "I have no idea what I was thinking, but let's be clear on this now. No more judgments. Am I understood?"
Vader sulked. Elf smiled. "Good," said Ben. The elf gladly followed Ben and Felicity out, but not without throwing a dirty glance back at Anakin Vader and miming a punch at him. "Ocean," Ben warned. "Don't even think about it." The elf turned and walked out with Ben and Felicity. Anakin Vader fumed. Ben took Felicity and Elf to the dining room for some refreshments and made himself some tea.
Please excuse me for cutting in again, but the reason for Ben flip-flopping on the origin of the judgment procedure is due to the Star Wars nut changing her mind. At first, she said it was unlike Palpatine, and it was a new requirement mandated by Anakin. Then, as she was shown what a narcissist, not to mention mean and indecent lout it showed Anakin Vader to be, she decided that the judgment thing was originated by Palpatine after all.
But this discrepancy also worked in Ocean's favor. It showed how Anakin was manipulating and twisting everyone's minds around him except Ocean's, whose mind he could not touch.
Even Ben Kenobi was not immune to being Anakinized. Please continue.
Anakin Vader came out of his chamber when he heard Sheev coming down the hall. He caught hold of him, saying, "Why did you fail to take the blame for the obstacle course?" Sheev shuddered. "Why did Elf find out about the judgment before it happened?" Vader demanded. "I don't know!" Sheev said, head bowed in contrition. "I did not create the obstacle course. I didn't even know about it until the elf led the child into the throne room. Neither did I realize it was a child I was supposed to judge,
then send to you for even more scrutiny," Sheev protested. "You told me it was a measure to protect us from threats, but I do not believe in putting children through. What you believe is unimportant. As a new emperor, you must do what that position requires. But you are not in a position to tell me what that is," Sheev reminded Vader. Suddenly, Sheev felt a much more severe discomfort than what he had experienced back in the throne room when he went off script to reassure Felicity. Sheev found it difficult to breathe. He shook violently and experienced a throbbing headache and burning, tingling extremities.
"You will persuade Ocean Elf to reconsider her role as mother to the child and as my future wife. You will not breathe a word to her why it concerns you. You will not tell her what just transpired," Vader commanded. "I am much stronger now that I am healed, so it is in your best interest to work with me on this plan."
And now you know why Emperor Sheev experienced discomfort and shuddering. Anakin Vader was spying and mind-torturing him the whole time.
Why in the world did Anakin Vader want to marry Ocean? They are complete opposites, and there is no way Ocean would have him.
Because in this Star Wars story, Ocean had even more of the Force than Anakin, and Felicity did as well. Marrying Ocean would give Anakin the status and glory he desired, and he could bump her off when convenient, as she was a threat to him as well. Then he could continue perpetuating the false image of himself as Felicity's doting father in public, while secretly looking to exploit her Force powers.
You are absolutely correct, Susan. You nailed down every motive Anakin had. Sheev could not convince Ocean to reconsider, and after they quarrelled, Ocean stormed off.